Jamie Pennell,
How are you?
welcome to Between Two Beers.
Thanks for having me.
We're buzzing for this one. We've both read your book, Serviceman J, which documents your 18-year career as a soldier and leader inside the New Zealand SAS. And holy shit, some of these stories, we're so excited to unpack it. I wanted to start by asking about the book. Did you need permission from the SAS or from the Army? Like, what was that?
No, there was no permission. Basically, I just made sure I gave them plenty of warning that it was going to come out. Obviously, something like this will always gain attention, a book of this nature, given my time and experience and what I'm going to write about. So I just made sure the powers that be knew it was coming very early on in the piece. And then obviously, I just had a discussion about what it was going to contain and if they had any issues, but I've done the right thing by giving them I've been transparent essentially, and also given them the final manuscript to check and redact if they need to, but nothing's really come back. I mean, I come from the organisation, so I know what can be talked about and what can't be, and that kind of thing, just to protect the people that are in there currently serving. It was a very, very easy process. But at the end of the day, the party line from the NZDF is they don't condone any type of private books being published, and so that's cool. I respect that, But as I said, it's going to happen either way. So I'm going to do the right thing by being transparent to you guys about what it looks like. If you think there's something in there that you don't want to be in there, then so be it. But I don't think I've crossed any lines.
Did you have an end goal in mind when you did write the book?
The end goal was to really reach primarily veterans. I mean, the story is about me, but it is about we. And I've said this before. My story is unique to me. But I think that with the storyline, people can kind of align themselves to in their own particular areas. I mean, I've got a broad group of people that I've served with that have, not only done their time inside the Army and the services and been on operations in the services, but then they've been outside as private contractors, been in Iraq and Africa and Afghanistan, and they've had significant operational experience as well. So I'm sure they can align themselves with my journey in a different way, and then align themselves to the toll it takes to actually, participate or be a person that has been involved in these types of experiences, which are quite significant. Hard to explain because you have to be in that environment, and I guess that's what I've tried to aim to do with this book, is to, as we talked about before we went on air, is sit on my shoulder, smell it, feel it, taste it, and give you a good understanding of what combat's really all about, and what it does to you.
As someone who's not obviously been in the armed forces.
Have you not been?
No. If I was, you wouldn't know. But I found some parallels being able to be drawn just into my kind of life, right, and stuff that I've done as well, and it's not with a military lens obviously, but if you skim that away and you look at some of the lessons that you've come out with, it's really, really beneficial and really well written.
Yeah, great. Yeah, well, I'm hoping to, that was one part of it, and I'm just hoping it'll reach out broad, across a broad spectrum of different people in different industries. The other one, obviously, I've worked within high performance sports as well. High performance sports environment is loosely sort of, I can see how it can align itself to type of military environment. They're in uniforms, they have a timetable. The teams that I was working with are generally, playing contact sports, rugby and rugby league and that type of thing. So they've got to perform at a particular point in time, and it's physical, it's dynamic, and that type of thing. So, I think they'd experience, the same sort of journey in a different way, and particularly that transition part as well. I think everyone feels that. Maybe in a corporate environment as well, if you've been in an organisation long enough where you've been part of the culture. We've definitely seen that with some of the corporate organisations that we work with, and they've had problems transitioning. So, like you say, I'm glad it's connected with you, and that tells me that I've hit the mark, because essentially the book is a lot of things, had a lot of different names, but definitely that depth, and what sits underneath these experiences, the deeper meaning.
We're going to be playing the role of the everyman in this one. As Shay said, we're not military men, but I've got so many questions. I'm so genuinely interested in all of it. But I wanted to start by, oddly enough, we have some podcast crossover with your military career. And we had Paddy Gower in a few years ago now. But one of his best stories is the time when he was in Iraq and had a bit of a mishap. And you were there. And Correct. I was wondering if we could get your version of what happened.
Yeah, so we're taking John Key into Iraq for a visit to the troops. They're in Taji, and also he had some some diplomatic visits with the president and the prime minister as well of Iraq. They got two, so we did a bit of a trip there. Anyway, we're all sort of had a point in time that we needed to be at the airfield to get on the aircraft and start making our way in. So. On that particular day, we all came down. The reporters were there, and I was the personal protection officer, so I was the primary security for Mr. Key, Prime Minister Key at the time. So I was basically on his shoulder the whole time. So I did a count of the heads, and I said, "Oh, okay, where's Paddy Gower?" And they said, "Oh, funny story, he's." Forgotten his passport.
Not so funny for Paddy.
And I knew where he had to go, and I knew he wasn't going to make the aircraft. I said, when did he leave? And they said, he's just gone back now. And I said, 20 minutes, he's not going to make the flight. There's no way he's going to make it. So anyway, I asked them, I said, hey, is he going to get a kick up the arse? And they said, yeah, you'll get a kick up the arse. So he would have been stressing, all the way back out to the city. But he was lucky because as we're waiting, we had one of the pilots come out and they said, hey, we're going to have to can it because there's a significant weather system going across Iraq at the moment, so we have to call it off. So I was like, oh, you're so lucky. And did he turn up with his passport the next day?
Was there any part of you thinking, we'll delay the plane for Paddy Gower?
No. I don't delay the plane for anyone.
Yeah,
I'll delay it for the Prime Minister.
Right.
That's about it.
Yeah. Is that the only person that makes that call? Is the PM?
Yeah, that's it. We're going. Well, his schedule was spoken for. Even he can't say no because we've got a time. We've got timings to meet. So, the ramifications of that, we had a 24-hour sort of layover that they have to go through the process of changing all the the visits and bits and pieces. This is big. This is big. This is beyond us. Through the ambassador New Zealand ambassador in Iraq. So it had been a great deal of work over 24 hours to redo the whole schedule and then get us back online. And yeah, we were stung with a couple of weather windows, which made it a very interesting trip, that one.
I think his retelling of the story was when he heard that the plane was coming back, he sort of celebrated like the All Blacks had won the World Cup.
Yeah. I actually listened back to it last night. It's interesting hearing it from the other perspective. Just a curious wormhole that I'll travel down. When you are PPO for a guy like the former Prime Minister, Sir John Key, do you retain that relationship afterwards? Like, do you bump into him every now and again, or have a round of golf with him? Or?
Oh, no, not really. It's a pretty quick whirlwind tour. I think we're there for a week. He's a busy guy, and once you separate, you're going in two different directions. I'm still doing what I'm doing, he's doing what he's doing, and I'm sure if I saw him on the street, he may not recognise me. A man like that would be. He'd have 1,000 million faces that he'd be looking at until I said, oh, hey, as your PPO, you'd probably have a laugh about it. Yeah, but he's what you see is what you get with him. Obviously, as PPOs, we don't talk much about the people that we're looking after because that's a personal thing. But the only thing I can say about it is what you see is what you get. He's a good dude, like a GC in my eyes, and hard worker as they always are. These guys work hard. They don't sleep much. And that's all the time. And I don't think the public see that. So same sort of thing that I was seeing with the CDF when I took them over as well. Just working hard, doing the job.
Do you sleep much when you're on that detail as well?
Not really. No, you are working quite hard, and you've got to be up before they're up, and then you've got to be, about an hour after they go to sleep, you're planning and preparing for the next day and getting the team ready, etc. So, yeah, it's just part and parcel with what it's all about. But again, if we go into the selection process, there's a reason for it.
Yeah, I want to build into all that. Tell me about childhood. Born in Wellington, but sort of raised in Massey, West Auckland. As a child, was it playing war? Was the army on your radar? How did you get into it?
Yeah, I think it was early on. I mean, I remember looking through my photo albums a couple of years ago, and there was a photo of me. I don't know, maybe I was 7 or 8 years old, and I was dressed in my like full camouflage gear that my mum had signed up for me. Standing, proud. And but what I did know about my childhood, we lived in a cul-de-sac in Massey, and so all the kids were around about the same age as well. We had that luxury of having all the kids around the same age, so we'd always congregate down the end of the cul-de-sac, after school or in the weekends. And the cul-de-sac sort of backed on to a massive reserve, and it had an estuary, and we had all this bush and that kind of thing. So back in those days, it's just leave the house at 8, come back at 6 for dinner, So we used to just go out in the bush, grab sticks and play war and climb trees and make huts and and cruise around and that kind of thing. So there was a good sort of background there. But it wasn't until I guess it was always on my mind, because I put my application in when I was 17 and a half, which is right on the line, of when you put your application into the army, and then then obviously going on, getting into the army was an interesting process, which you may want to go back to if I forget. But I remember when I got to the end of my career, and I went back into the admin office, and I said, "Oh, can I just have a look at my file?" And picked it up. Weighed about 20 kgs, just picked this file up. So it was, it was all the courses and stuff. Yeah, 20 years worth, flicking through it. And I thought, I'll start at the start, eh? So I went back to where, because I was wondering how well I did on my tests at the beginning, and what, and why I went to the infantry rather than, the other the trades that I went into. But, obviously it was all, that's all destiny, really, that's where I should have been. But anyway, I got to the back of the form, and at the back of the form it asks you, what are your aspirations in the army, like what do you want to do in the future? And all I put was to join the SAS. And when I read that, I was thinking, 17 and a half, like, did I even know? Because I couldn't, obviously I can't remember that far back, but I think I had a real vague understanding that the SAS were out at Hobsonville, and it was a special unit, and that was about it. But that obviously stuck with me, because I remember that part. I don't really remember that part, but I remember the part where I was in basic training, and one of the instructors said on the playground, "Do you guys know what the SAS is about?" And I said, "Yes, Corporal." And he said, "Do you think you're going to join the SAS?" I went, "Yeah, Corporal." And he just laughed in my face, and you know what I mean, and that kind of thing. So, I guess early on, yeah, I knew what I was going to do, and and then made it happen and transitioned into the SAS. But I think that was the main thing, just how early on it had occurred to me that that's what I wanted to do, and I made it happen. But,
was it a military house, like mum and dad, when you made the decision to go that path? Was there any resistance? Did they encourage it?
Yeah, no, there's no resistance. My mum, handed the decision over to me whether I wanted to do it. So obviously I put my application in when I was 17 and a half. A couple of years went by, and I didn't really get any communication back from the recruiters, and then all of a sudden on one evening at about 7 o'clock, the recruiter calls me up and says, "Jamie Pennell, yes, hey, listen, we've had like 20 or 30 people have come off the current basic training, and we're trying to fill numbers. So if you want to go on basic training now, let me know. I'll ring you back in an hour, and then you'll be on the vehicle, and you'll be down to Wairau in 2 days." And I was thinking, "Oh, okay, yep, no worries." So, typical 19-year-old, "Hey, Mum, what do you think I should do? Do you think I should go down?" And she said, "Hey, at the end of the day, it's your decision. It's a big decision, and you have to make it. I support it, and that type of thing." So you rang me back. I just said, yeah, I'm keen, let's go. And 2 days later, I'm in the army, signing the line, getting told, sign the line, you're mine. It was snowing, all that kind of stuff, it was a complete culture shock. But yeah, just jumped straight in with 2 feet.
What were you doing before, between 17 and 19?
I worked for the warehouse when they kind of first kicked off, making mountain bikes, stripping asbestos, painting ceilings, and then the job that I left before I went to the army was with an engineering company. And this guy had put a bit of time and effort into me, He was going to start me at the bottom in the store and then sort of work me up as a sales rep and then, slowly move up the ranks. He was happy to pay for my certificate in engineering. I just had to pass it. He was going to reimburse me on that, but he was sort of going to, groom me to do stuff within the company. And then, kind of did that for a year. And then when that happened, I went down. He was disappointed, but, it is what it is. These things come up. And again, I guess it's one of those points in time in your life where, an opportunity presents itself. You're either going to jump in with 2 feet or you're just going to carry on with what you're doing and you'll never know what happens after that. So
it was an interesting time in general because it's post-Iraq, pre-Afghanistan, pre-Iraq again. So it was kind of more peacekeeping missions and times is kind of my recollection of that sort of mid-90s before 2000 era.
Yep.
Is that what you're preparing for when you are in the military?
You're preparing for full conventional war, and then you can, everything else falls off the back of that. So if you're not preparing and training for war, then you're not really doing the right thing. So the capability is that everything past that point is quite easy to dial back on and fall into. And, I think New Zealand is in a unique position at the bottom of the world. We can, we quite unbiased, I guess, to a point. We're not sitting in Europe or anything else. Well, we know what the country names are. If you ask Americans if we're New Zealanders, they'll probably point to Greenland or something like that. So we got the benefit of being in this small country, probably have a very wide vision. And we are, we come from that peacekeeping base, East Timor and some of our other commitments with the UN around the world. And I believe that holds us in good stead. And, I guess we have a bit of a tribe mentality as well, particularly in the New Zealand Army. And Ngāti Tūmatawinga, we're actually a recognised tribe in New Zealand. Hearts and minds comes quite easily for us, I think. And that's what we try to do, genuinely connect with the population and particularly the people that we're protecting. If we're partnering forces, is making sure we have a good connection with them as well. And then that way, it's a genuine relationship. You get on with each other, you trust each other, and, you can't ask for anything more than that. You get protection from that way as well, and it's not disingenuine, it's genuine, So the local population, if they think you're a genuine, trusted partner, then, they're going to tell you if something's going on. If they don't, then obviously, it might be lights out for you.
I definitely can attest to that, having my background's in the Solomon Islands. So when the regional assistance mission went up there, I know New Zealand is still held in really, really high esteem by the Solomon Islands as well, from the way they conducted themselves. Yep,
Papua New Guinea as well. I know we've done some training in Papua New Guinea, and it was pretty good to see how they view New Zealanders in particular. And I just think, we've got that reputation. We're a small country, small force in relation to our population, of course. And I think, we've got a lot of respect out there, and we do punch above our weight.
I want to lead us into the SAS. I want you to tell us what it is and also what's the process of getting in. And I've got a lot of questions about selection. But how many years were you in the Army before you're able to go into selection, and what is the SAS?
I was probably 2 years, 1 or 2 years. I think I did my first selection in, was it 1996? And I failed that one, and obviously did the one in 1997. What was the second question?
Well, what is the SAS?
What is the SAS? Yeah, the SAS is a Tier 1 Special Forces unit. It is one of 5. There's probably a couple other Tier 1 Special Forces unit now, but essentially when I was in, it was New Zealand SAS, Australian SAS, British SAS, SEAL Team 6 and Delta. But now you've got JTF2, which is Canadian Special Forces. You've also got FSK and MSK, which are marine and land-based special forces as well in Norway. So they're getting right up there as well. I don't know if they've been given Tier 1 status, but we fit into that scope at that level. I think the only difference between us and the rest of the world is just numbers. We have enough, but, the numbers of your forces are in direct relation to your the number of people in your population within your country. Obviously, the US has a lot of people. We've got 380 million people that they can draw from. It's a big recruitment pool. And as well as that, there's a lot of money that come through, taxes and bits and pieces that can fund their weapons and equipment. So, in the US, you'll see 2 CS-17s parked on the tarmac with ready to go on global missions, and in New Zealand, we've got a small air force that can do the same thing, but they've got a wider scope of operations, not just directly involved or organic to a special forces unit. So we are, and again, we're small, but we do punch above our weight, and definitely we've got a lot of respect out there with what we've done in the past.
And it's not just the Army, right? It's also Navy and Air Force that can come into SA.
All 3 services,
And civilians?
I think the civilian direct entry path is still there. We don't get a lot of people, as in passing right through to being badged from the civilian side. But I think the option's still there as far as I know.
And an intake is like, how many people are you looking around on day one? For selection.
Yeah, I might just not go on the numbers, but it's anywhere between 50 and 100.
Oh wow!
And then you might get 10% of that, maybe at the end, and then at the end of cycle of training, you'll probably get 3 to 5% of that.
Yeah, wow.
Lucky if you're lucky.
So you mentioned it's like a 9-day selection, and the first time you failed, and I was really interested hearing about the part that you sort of failed on, right? You were carrying the jerry cans for half the, was it 20 hours or
10
something?
hours. 10 hours, I'd carried it.
10 hours, and you're meant to carry it 10 hours back.
20 hours, yes.
20 total.
10 out, 10 back, yep.
And it broke you, and then you've gone away, and it's kind of made you sort of think about whether it's something you want to do. But can you take us back to that 9-day selection? It's like obstacle courses and swimming in uniforms and body dragging other candidates, and it's designed to mentally break you, right? And only the very top will actually progress.
Correct. Yeah. The selection is designed so we can see you functioning as an SAS soldier at the highest capacity. So, checkpoint to checkpoint, long distances by yourself with your own thoughts, heavy weight on your back, any season weather or terrain, sleep deprived, food deprived, like that's the highest function, being able to recall information and all that as well. And just basically, you just keep going. We just want to see that you keep going. And it's called a course for a reason. You've got to obviously front up with a certain amount of resilience, but we're building it into as you go, because you can't really train for selection. You can try, but once the food and the sleep go away, and you're destroying your body, because midway through you're in a world of hurt, and this is where it comes to this. The physical thing, you got to be, your base level of fitness needs to be quite high. It'll serve you well, but once you get to the centre, then that goes straight to this. Like how far can you drag your carcass, and are you going to be able to get to the end? So there's a lot in it. The first day is basically about draining all the available energy that you have in your body from all the food that you've had right off the bat. So when you're going into the first day of the navigation, you're already on the back foot. And then from there it just you get slowly depleted. The barrier, so you got that first day, you got 3 days of sort of open country navigation, and the distances vary from day to day. The terrain varies from day to day, and then you do the barrier test, which is what you're talking about, the jerry can carry over 20 hours. Carrying 6 jerry cans between 5 candidates, so every hour you sort of switch around. Jerry can weighs about 20 kgs, 20 litres, 20 kgs, plus you got your pack on, your weapon, your webbing, so you're carrying 30, 35 kg on your back anyway. And you just, shuffle along, just keep moving. 20 hours.
Like I guess the simple way to break it down, like one foot in front of the other, is that the way through that part of it?
100%. Yeah. But everything's hurting. You got to carry a jerry can. You've got the weight on your back. You're in a we choose which environment we're going to put you in. Sometimes it's out in the sand. Sometimes it's in the swamp. Each has its advantages and disadvantages. And then, you got to compete with the weather as well. Depends on what sort of weather system's coming across. Doesn't matter We don't care what weather system's coming across. You're doing it.
Yeah.
You're doing it that day, and so are we. We're in there too, Not that we're carrying the jerry cans, but we're watching you, So, there's just no way around it, and that's the true barrier test. And halfway through, and particularly when you get into the night, and it's interesting with the night on my one, during the day, not too bad. I mean, you're pretty destroyed by 10 hours, but into the night they decided to put the pedal down, and so they made us move fast. They started making us move fast to get us back online. And for me, it was just eating that elephant in small chunks. So I just broke it down into hour by hour. Every time we changed around the jerry cans, I was counting down the hours until the sun came up. And I lost myself, and I guess in those last 10 hours, and as most people do, and suddenly the sun comes up and you've crossed that line. And past that point, it's that particular activity, as anyone who's been through it before will tell you, is that once you're past that activity, if you pull off at that point, that's a lot that you've just wasted. If you're going to get to that point, you kind of no turning back. And some guys do, but it's a real small amount. Like we might lose one or maybe two from that point until the end. But you still got 3 days to go. You got a couple of days of navigating through the bush. So you've got to demonstrate that over the same distances. And then you've got a 60-kilometre march out of there, and that's without a watch. And basically you're just told to march to a certain point, no map, just yourself, your pack. And you just keep walking until you're told to stop. And it just goes on and on and on. It's all right if you've got a map and a watch, because you know where you are, you know the time, you know how far you got to go. But when it's taken away, you don't know any of that. So again, it comes back down to this. We just want to see you intrinsically motivating yourself to get to the finish line. And that's the biggest thing, is that some people need positive motivation to perform. Some people perform well when they get negatively motivated, when they're yelled at. But we don't give you any motivation. We just say, your next activity is here, and you need to go to there, and I'll see you there. You know what I mean? And so at the end of the day, it's up to you. So this is a difference, and this is a difference between, again, professional athletes and the SAS. We are designed to perform at the highest level under the worst conditions. High-performance athletes, arguably have to perform at the highest level with everything, physios and massage and hydration and all that kind of stuff. So we don't have that luxury, and so that's the massive difference.
I feel like this mindset is incredible, but I think this part speaks to the resilience of what we're going to go on to discuss, because in that first selection, you've done 6 days, you're halfway through the jerry can, and then you break and you leave, and you're surrounded by a bunch of like-minded guys or girls, I'm not sure, who would push through. And then you make the decision to go away and come back and do it all again. Like, did that send you for a spin when you've broken and I assume you would feel like you've failed? Mm. And then how did you pick yourself up to do the whole thing again?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame thing, eh? It was fear of failure will do two things. It'll make you rise or fall, and you'll just stay in that direction or not. Or maybe, if you fall, you maybe gather yourself up and dust yourself off after a period of time. But for me, I just felt a bit of shame, and then because I had to go back down to battalion and front up to my mates. And if you think about it, so I came off basic training in 1995. In end of 94, I finished basic training. Sort of, I guess 2 or 3 months into 1995, I finished my core training. So I was real young. I'd only just joined the infantry, and then in 1996, I decided to do my first selection. So that was a year and a half. And, everyone would have been saying, you're not going to pass. You're a young fella, you need to do a bit more time in the battalion. Unofficial rules, but no one can say that I've seen guys pass who have done 6 months. So, and then turning around and coming back and fulfilling their what they thought was going to happen was a bit of shame. But, that spurred me on big time. And, there were some people were saying, I knew you were going to pass. And I was like, okay. And that actually started fueling my fires. Like, oh, well, I'm going to go do it next year, and I'm going to, I'll die before I come back. I'll be back on a stretcher. So, definitely fueled my motivation.
Do you remember getting to that same point the second time and crossing it and being like, right, okay, there's no way
I'm in it. Yeah, I was in it. I pretty much right from the get-go, because I, coming so new and only really hearing about it and having gone that far, suddenly I had the benefit of vision, and I could see what was about to happen. And so when I got on the trucks and we arrived at the place that we're doing the barrier test, for me it was like, yep, I know I can do 10 hours, and then I got, this is the one I need to pass, because this is where I did fail last time. And so again, and I'm being serious about this. I was either going to die, get seriously injured, and the only way they were going to pull me off was if they're going to pull me off, and they were going to do it. I wasn't going to do anything, you know what I mean? So, and I just had to keep going. That was it.
And you pass selection, but then you go into 11 months of training.
Yep. Yep.
So that in itself is like you've achieved this feat of getting to a point, but then I don't imagine the training is any easier than selection.
No, and the selection is just your foot in the door. We just sort of, oh yeah, okay, yep, come in. Now let's see what you can do. So we start building those skills into you, but then we want to see not only you as an individual, but how you work as a team. And it's long. You are under the microscope for that 11 months, and it's pretty acute, and it's in the feedback's direct, and you've only got so many, times to pass and all that kind of thing. So you got to be on your game all the time. You can't really have an off day, and that kind of thing. And it's all relative. And from my perspective, given the experience that I've been through, it's perfectly designed. The whole process is perfectly designed to for you to operate effectively on when we're out on operations.
Well, we'll see how that plays out as we go through the story.
Yeah, because it all lines up. It all lines up, and so that was the 11 months is pretty significant, but it's a whole lot of different skills that you're learning that you've never you haven't seen before, you haven't experienced before, so that's exciting. But you're tired, you're tired all the way through. Not much break from anything. You're always training, PT in the morning, then you're out, jumping out of helicopters and during the day and night, and a lot of sleep deprivation, and they're just still putting you under the pump. There's a lot to it.
Like a 2-week holiday every sort of 6 weeks.
No holidays. The weekends every now and again, we go out and hit it pretty hard, decompress and that kind of thing. But
And is there a veil of secrecy over this 11 months as to what you're doing? Are you just, I'm Jamie and I'm at work for the next 11 months? Like, is that?
I mean, at that point, you start getting your head in the game about what you should be talking about and what you shouldn't be talking about. And I just kind of, got into the mode of not really telling people much about what I was doing. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're telling people everything about everything, then you're not going to be very effective as a fighting force, because you're basically giving away the playbook about how we do our things. It'd be like you go into the NRL and the Warriors are parting the Dragons. This is what we're going to do tonight. Like it's it's not going to work. It's going to not work in your favour. So, yeah.
So you're 21 and you're in the SAS now. How do you think about yourself? Do you think you're surrounded by other elites who have gone through this stuff together? Do you think you are the man?
You're on probation for a couple of years first, so you still got to demonstrate, that you have the ability to be there. So it's kind of like another. It's like a 2-year period of trust building with not only your peers but with your superiors. And it's at that point that you're in front of some pretty significant human beings. And I was lucky enough to have some very strong lance corporals and sergeants and warrant officers above me. And they cracked you into shape pretty quickly. And the boys will tell you direct, whether you're doing the right thing or not, or pull your head in.
And I imagine that those bonds get really, really strong over that period of time.
Yeah, you're living in each other's pockets. You're doing a whole lot of pretty significant stuff. And then, obviously you go away on operations as well, and that just sort of tightens things up even more.
I'm going to put a plug in for the book here because we're going to start talking about Afghanistan. And there's so much detail and there's so many great stories in here, but we're just going to sort of pick away at a few. But tell us about that first trip, the first deployment to Afghanistan. That's as an SAS. Tell me about that first deployment. What role it was?
Yeah, so first deployment, that was in the early days. So we were doing long range reconnaissance. So basically,
Can I pause there? How much notice do you get before you're going to be deployed?
Sometimes a lot, sometimes not much. It just depends on at what point the government is making the decision. So for this first deployment, we knew we had a lot of notice because we'd already, we had one rotation that had already been in, second rotation was in country, and we were, relieving them. So we had a bit of time there. Long range reconnaissance patrols mounted, as in we're on Humvees out in the Badlands. I mean, back in those days, we were still going out there and getting an understanding of the terrain, the people, tribes, where enemy positions were located. Caves was a big thing, checking caves. They're talking about that a lot, and weapons and ammunition, where they're hiding them in there. So going after that stuff, and basically just getting out in the wide open spaces and seeing what it was all about. So for that particular tour, it started off, I was just like a gunner on the vehicle, and then I quickly was re-rolled into being an outrider. And an outrider is just a couple of guys on motorbikes that stay ahead of the convoy and basically give early warning and a whole lot of other things. So that was a good role because, you could really stretch out. You could just get on these motorbikes and just ride, and Afghanistan, unfortunately, the position they find themselves in at the moment where, you can go backpacking and travelling if you want, but you're risking life, right? But, one day when it opens its doors up, it's going to be the best adventure playground everyone's ever been on in their life. And so, when we're on these bikes, enduro riding, the best enduro riding you could do anywhere in the world. And I didn't get, it's probably one of the best motorbike riders in the world by the end of that tour. Yeah, maybe not an enduro step, well, I don't know, but we did a lot of riding, and I was doing stuff that I never thought I'd do on those bikes. You know what I mean? Like I just couldn't believe it, going down steep-sided scree slopes and stuff like that. And we didn't have helmets or anything like that because it's too hot to wear helmets. I just had a baseball cap on backwards with with my sleeves rolled up and glasses. Not quite the enduro riding PPE that you'd probably see out there, but we did some pretty epic stuff, and you work your ass off, as an outrider and that type of thing, and anyway, did that sort of stuff, and I guess do you want to get into the first little contact that we got into? Yeah,
but before that, at what point of your SAS journey do you make peace with the fact that you may die in your job?
Probably right at the beginning. I've got that mindset. I think I wrote in the book that, and this used to happen all the time, I'll get on the plane and I'll be looking out the window at New Zealand going by and thinking, I wonder if I'm going to see that in person again, and so have a bit of a reflection, and then my mind would just, as it always does, it just focuses on what I need to be getting on with. Again, I'm going over there representing New Zealand. We're there to do job. I volunteered for this. We know what the outcome is. I could get killed, maybe not, and I could get seriously injured, maybe not, and that's what you sign up for, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, all the boys want to get into it. They may have some apprehension, and maybe they're fighting their own demons in terms of, maybe not seeing their family and friends. But, it's the same old thing. It's like, you train for rugby, but you never play a game, so this is the thing, is that, we've done all this training. Let's see how we go,
And how did you go? First contact? How soon after you landed are you in a firefight?
I think so. Maybe halfway through the tour, that was the first time. We were heading down to right down south in Afghanistan. So we flew out of Kandahar. We're in these souped up Hercules aircraft. They're called Talons, so they're not quite like the Hercules aircraft because they're quite old, but kind of that same shape. Had all our vehicles, jumped in at night in these Talon aircraft and flew up to Herat and from Kandahar. Landed in an airfield at night. The US Special Forces had secured the airfield with their partner force. Got out of the vehicles, clipped onto them, and then we sort of drove up the road towards Herat, turned our lights off. We're in the middle of their convoy, and then we just sort of disappeared into the night while they kept going, bit of a diversion. Ended up driving a good couple of days, getting down south, and it was more at night than during the day, just depending on what the terrain looked like. But we're driving at night this time. And we try to avoid, you try to avoid villages, but you can't get away with it because sometimes, the terrain will just, draw you into these particular areas. And so, we started seeing automatic fire going directly up into the sky, and it was tracer. And so when you see that, they're onto you and they're signalling everyone else that there's someone in the area, and then you start seeing another line of tracer going up, and basically they're just boxing you in and saying, yep, we can see them. And they're telling everyone else no, kind of like putting a flare up, So anyway, we just made note of that. We've got guns and that kind of thing. We're good. Went past this village. We kept riding on. We're about probably half a kilometre in front of the convoy. And we're just sitting there, and I was watching the convoy coming around the village and making their way up towards us. Got our lights off, obviously. We're all under MVG, using IR light. You can't see it with the naked eye.
Night vision goggles, by the way.
Night vision goggles.
Thanks,
yeah.
Sorry, don't worry. I've got
shades of military.
I've got the glossary of terms up here.
Keep me honest. And I was just, chatting. I think we had the motorbikes turned off. I can't remember. But, we're just sort of sitting there, and then... and then all of a sudden I just see this machine gun open up quite far out in the distance, like a heavy machine gun, boom, 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 boom. And I said, shots fired out to the east or whatever it was. I had like a cardinal direction on my NVG back in the day, so I could give them the direction, and just to give people an understanding where it was. And they're like, yeah, roger. And anyway, then these tracer rounds just came straight over the top of us. I can't remember how high they were, and then they just exploded. And I was like, it's a bit weird because they're quite big. It was quite big tracer, and I thought, it must be. I wonder if that's an anti-aircraft gun.
It's a big. That's a big weapon.
It's a big gun. Yeah, it's a big gun. And this is my first contact getting engaged by an anti-aircraft gun that I assume was an anti-aircraft gun, and it was. And so I just said, contact left, and no, actually, I didn't even say contact left. I don't know why I said it, but I just said, I think they're firing at us. Wrong call. You're sacked. Yeah, because I wasn't too sure. I was like, it didn't hit us, so I don't know, we didn't contact. And then we just started riding back, and then the guy on the gun that fired that first volley, he upped the rate big time, and he was trying to knock us off our bikes. He was just, you're just like laying it out on us, and it was just going across our heads. And I just motored it back, and by the time we got back to the convoy just lit up and just started engaging. Every single vehicle swung round and just started engaging from where they were firing from, and we just got into this gun battle with them, and then they fell silent. So we knocked those guys over. So they had 2 anti-aircraft guns mounted on a compound wall, and what they'd done is they'd sort of, because the anti-aircraft gun base just sits like that, and obviously it's for air, not for the ground, but what they do is they just like do that so they can get it down to ground level. But they didn't have the elevation correct for where we were, so they could only go down so far. So the rounds were just going straight over the top of us. Now it would have been a completely different story if they'd got it right on us, because they were bang on for line. You know what I mean? They just would have, and because of the 2 guns, they had quite a big spread. The rounds were spreading out. And everyone would have been feeling some rounds coming to those vehicles. We would have been in a completely different situation. And I guess when we go through the stories, luck has played a part in a lot of these engagements with me involved, as well as others, that people haven't been killed in great numbers.
We're going to talk about later about being in flow state when this is all happening and being in control. But in your first contact, and you're getting back, and you've realised that you've survived, like, is your heart racing? Are you in control then?
I guess the adrenaline's still hitting you, but it's just trying to make sense of it. I think it's more. It's like, wow, that was pretty. That was a good hit out. Like I thought maybe I'd be eased into it.
Yeah, that's
maybe
the
have a couple of little engagements with just 1 or 2 people, and then we sort of built into it. It was big from the start, but I think everyone was just pretty happy that we'd got away with it, and that type of thing, and it was. I can't remember how I was feeling, but I think it was, my eyes were like this. But better for it, better prepared.
So for deployments of Afghanistan, I've heard you speak about how sometimes it all gets sort of mixed together and it's hard to remember exactly like what was where in the detail. But there are some that obviously do stand out. And one of them was you were with Willie Apiata when he was awarded his Vic Cross. Can you tell us about what happened there and what your experience was?
I woke up as soon as the first rounds went up. I woke up and obviously I was lying on my back and I was still in my sleeping bag. I was thinking, hey, what's going on here? And it was a heavy weight of fire. And I actually thought initially, because I'd just woken up, that the sorry, it's my mouth was going away from the microphone. That it was our guys shooting in that direction. So they were actually shooting at something that was just in front of us. So I looked, and then I realised the tracer colour was different. I was just slowly gaining situational awareness, and I was like, oh shit, we're in it. And then I could see a whole lot of just almost like just rockets just coming at us, just like that, and a heavy weight of tracer, like a sheet of it, basically. And so we got up, chucked our gear on the vehicle. The guys were in contact on the other side of the hill. We're on the other side, so we're on the opposite side of the hill. So we had a bit of cover. And our job on that side obviously was to protect our rear, make sure no one was going to come up from behind us. One of the guys said to me, "Hey, I think there's two guys down behind us." And I went, "Oh yeah, cool." So I moved over there and just and covered it just to see if I thought they'll bring in another group around to come up from behind and start attacking us. So I was ready to go for that with another guy, and then he said, "Oh, actually, I know we told the interpreters to run off, so it could be them coming back." And sure enough, it was them coming back. I mean, where were they going to go? They would have been on the run into wherever. So they just decided to stay with us. We told them to go because we didn't want them to get involved. No, good guys. So they came back up, and then the troop commander just told everyone to get up on the hill because we were taking a bit of a beating. So we had one vehicle down already, and that was obviously the vehicle that Willie Apiata was on with his vehicle commander and one other, and they'd already started making their way back up to behind one of the other vehicles to get medical attention. So we moved up onto the hill straight away. Basically, a vehicle had gone from the back, had already come up over top of the hill while we're taking rounds. A friend of mine, Ricardo, he's referred to as Ricardo in the book, and he was a vehicle commander, and they basically took up a position and then just started getting at it after the assault group started laying down a heavy weight of fire. They turned the whole battle round because he ended up, his gunner ended up killing the commander, the assault group commander, and one other. And once the commander goes, that's it. They no longer can operate effectively. And so what happened was they saw their commander was dead, they saw one more guy get killed, and then they started taking 50 cal fire, and they started retreating back down that dry riverbed, and they had fallback positions, they had weapons and ammunition staged down that dry riverbed, and they'd fall back on it, start giving us, start firing at us, and then they'd keep falling back and fire at us, so we had to deal with that. We got up on the hill. I was on my motorbike. We were looking for a withdrawal route if we needed to, and then they just told us, everyone get up on the hill and start helping out.
For Willie's part in that, he wins the Vic Cross, which is New Zealand's highest military award. When do you hear of his part in it, and how does that get relayed? And is what he did there more special than what? I'm trying to understand, like, why what he did got the biggest honour in the military game.
Yeah, so obviously there has to be a high chance of you being killed doing that action, and it has to be something significant. So, like I said, there was such a heavy weight of fire coming down on our position. He basically picked the man up on his shoulders and ran uphill under heavy fire, a significant amount of fire, and I know because I was there, and rockets as well. And a lot of the fire and rockets were directed right on their position. Their Humvee got smoked, and he ran that particular length of the field, if you like, to the next Humvee. And then, reintegrated himself into the firefight. So there was a significant, he didn't have to do that. You either make the decision or you don't. So it was a selfless decision. he was, saving the life of one of his mates because he could see that, he's bleeding out from the artery in his arm, and it's a quick death after that. If you don't put a tourniquet on that thing in about 2.5 minutes, see you later. So yeah, that's how he got it.
And then word spreads around the camp of shit, well done, or is it just like everyone's?
No, it's like, yeah,
that's
what we do.
Yeah. It's pretty matter of fact, eh? I mean, it gets down to being a drill that you're familiar with. And obviously when you put rounds into it, that's the difference, and so that's the difference between obviously training and operations, but. No one was really talking about VCs or medals or who just did that, and we talked about who did that and who did that. We do a debrief and that kind of thing and review. So when we go out the next day, we're good to go. But no one was talking about VCs at that point. It's just all that stuff. The after action reports get written up, and who did what and that kind of thing, and then that goes through a process through the leadership, and then they'll look at it and they'll think, okay. You know what I mean? And then I'll see how it marries up with the criteria.
It's an interesting space, eh? Sorry to cut you off. Because I know we're going to talk about your award later, and it's almost, it's not reluctant because I know you're getting it on behalf of the team that's over there. But the same with Willie, I'm sure that getting this award makes you feel sort of uncomfortable in some way by the attention it brings you. You just want to be recognised as part of the team, or is it important to be recognised?
No, I don't think anyone wants to be recognised. They'd rather just walk away and stay in the shadows, I mean, it's always good to get recognised, but, I'm sure you would have seen Willie's reaction when he got pulled out in front of the media. It was all a bit too much. He's, because you come from that environment where, if the cameras are pointing that way, you're about 1,000 miles that way, you know what I mean? And that's what you're that's how you're trained, stay away from the cameras and the media and all that kind of stuff. And just doing the job.
Yeah, well, but what about like retelling these stories and writing a book? Like, is it hard for you we're asking you to go back, and we're about to ask you to go back to 2011. Is it hard for you to tell these stories?
It was, I mean, we can have a discussion about why I wrote the book and that type of thing and the process that I had to go through. But, it was very much, I'll tell you why I wrote the book is a lot of people around me said to me, hey, I think you should write a book. And I said, no, why do you think that? And they said, well, because you've done quite a bit of stuff. And
if you read the book, you'll fucking realise he's done a lot of stuff.
I'll write the book.
He's done a lot of fucking stuff.
Yeah. So and I had a whole lot of people tell me that, both inside and outside the regiment. And so I'm a bit of a spiritual guy, and I believe in symbology, relationships and people saying stuff and things you see, kind of will point you in the right direction if they really want you to start listening. So I heard enough and I was thinking, okay, maybe, even my wife was saying it to me and she was just laughing. But sort of what pushed me over the edge was Paul Askin, who's Steve Askin's dad. Steve Askin, obviously, as you read in the book, he was in the squadron with me. We're outriders together. He's a really good operator. Good man to have on your side. If you're going to pick him for a team, he'd be the first guy you pick. And we'll talk about him. His exploits. But he died in a helicopter crash in the Port Hills, fighting the Port Hills fires. Unfortunately, the monsoon bucket wrapped around the tail rotor, and he lost control of the aircraft and hit the deck. And that's all she wrote. But once Paul wanted me to, write something about Steve, and just so he could give to Steve's kids, so they could, know what kind of man he was in the regiment, what kind of soldier he was. And so I said, yeah, no worries. But it took me a couple of years to make that happen, and that kind of thing. And that's kind of the reason. And and then I had to go through the process, what we're talking about now, which is you sit behind the shadows, and now I'm fighting against those innate character traits, that are solidified in my system about, not telling the media about what I'm up to and what I'm doing and that kind of thing. So I had to have a real soul-searching moment, and I was kind of dragging my heels into the deck moment all the way in there. But, between my wife, other people I was talking to, obviously HarperCollins and the people I'm working with as well, they helped me get across that line. And once I wrote the book and I went through it, started proofreading it a few times, I just started coming to the realization that I did need to tell the story, and obviously within the parameters of the rules. And some people that were in the regiment, high ranking, were saying as well, they don't have a problem with it, and all those things sort of start bringing it into focus that it's okay to start talking about these things, and there's a healing process as well, as we know. And the feedback I'm getting now from my cohort of everyone, basically, but I haven't made everyone happy, but that's a journey they have to go through in themselves. It's not right or wrong. I respect that they don't like it. That's cool. But the feedback I'm getting from all the boys is resounding. That I have the courage to talk about it and help them understand their own demons and that kind of thing, and the toll it takes on them as well. So it's been pretty liberating.
I'm glad you have shared, and we're going to talk about Kabul now, and we're going to spend a section on Steve, because I know it is important to honour his memory. So to set the scene, Kabul International Hotel siege in 2011. For your part in this, you were awarded the New Zealand Gallantry Star, the country's second highest military honour for your bravery. So 6 days before the attack, the American then President Barack Obama had announced the pending withdrawal of 10,000 US soldiers from Afghanistan. And that sprung the Taliban into life, right? So take us there in whatever way you want to tell it.
Yep, so they started... they may have already started training on the other side of the Pakistan border. They had Haqqani handlers, as far as I know, the group of Taliban, so they did all their training. We actually got video of that stuff. They actually posted on YouTube, I think. I can't remember, either YouTube or another channel, where they actually had all them shooting and running around, and then they had the mock-up of the model of the hotel and that kind of thing. So they did their training. Came across the border on 28th of June 2011, 9 of them. Went in, the news agencies reckon that they sort of walked up the driveway and shot at the security guards from the south, and then entered the hotel. But they didn't do that. That's smart. They came in from the path of least resistance, which was on the top. They ended up executing 2 Afghan National Police on a sort of a lookout post above the hotel. This is the information that we got. And then they came down and basically made their way in that way, and they sort of attacked the security guards from behind by surprise. Went in, killed, I think, 13 to 17 in the initial attack. They, inside the hotel, some staff members, hotel guests, and then they had a crack at a wedding party that was out the back around by the pool. And then they basically took up positions within the hotel and specifically on the roof, and waited for the Afghan National Security Forces to arrive, as they do. This is just, run-of-the-mill, the way they do their business. And, as a terrorist group, they're trying to legitimise their existence, helps with funding when they do these actions, when they do a spectacular attack, the purpose, legitimising their existence, getting funding, helps with recruitment, and, helps them probably bring in new funding streams, to say, hey, we can do this, and you may want to give us some more money and bits and pieces. So, did that. Obviously, the Afghan National Security Forces were alerted. Once they're alerted, then the CRU were alerted, and then you start getting eyes on from the media. The first I heard of it was the SIG operator woke me up at about 10 o'clock at night, said, hey, there's a spectacular attack going on in the city. Do you want to come in to the Tactical Operations Centre? I said, I'm half asleep. And that, it's 10 o'clock at night, I've only just got to bed. So I said, come and have a look. So I went into the Tactical Operations Centre, or the TOC, got into the back room with a senior national officer, and he said, he basically ran it down to me. There's something's going on in the city at the Intercontinental Hotel. We're looking at the screens. There's a number of screens. There's a lot of comms going backwards and forwards with our training team that were embedded with the CRU, the Crisis Response Unit, who we were partnering at the time, had responded. Their job was to respond to spectacular attacks in the city, as well as do high-risk arrests around the city and in the outlying provinces. So they were responding as they should have with their roles and responsibilities. they were making their way down there. I could see Fox News. I could see what was going on, but, you know, they were doing a lot of talking, but really we're looking at optics. We just want to see what we can see. Can we see shooting? Okay, we can see shooting. Who's responding? All the carnage down there just gives us a better understanding of what we're up against. On the other screen, I could see the ISR platform there. What's that one? Can you remember that one?
Intelligence. No.
Surveillance and reconnaissance.
Good test. I got the first one right.
Yeah.
I panicked. You looked at me in the eye and I fucking shit myself.
Stay calm, bro.
Are you going to know that one?
Yeah. I'll never make it now.
Yeah. So that was above our heads, and
It's a basically bird. There's a bird up in there.
Yeah. Well, it was a predator, so it was just sitting above, and it was giving us that thermal imagery, so you can see the heat signatures on the top of the roof. So what we could see was they were engaging with the Afghan National Police, and they were ringing basically in a ring around the hotel. They were the inner cordon, and then the Afghan National Army, I think, was holding the outer cordon. So they're in a gun battle backwards and forwards. I mean, when you look at that, it's you know, I'd seen a couple of those on a previous tour, so it wasn't too, you know, different. I was like, okay, another spec attack in the city. Cool. Do you want me to go back to bed? Or, yeah, that's okay. The worrying thing is, and again, I say this time again, is that, you know, they were shooting at the Afghan National Police, but a lot of their rounds were going high. So rockets and automatic fire were going into the neighbourhood around behind the hotel, and obviously, you know, there's families in there, so you got to do something about that. So it's like, oh, okay. All right. And the senior national officers, I said to him, hey, there's 2 squadrons down there. No, how many squadrons down there? He said 2. I said, there's 2 squadrons down there. They can handle it. You know, I mean, what are we looking at? You know, how many people can you see on the roof now? And he said, well, I can see 4, but the numbers keep changing. You know, it's like 4, 7, 2. You know, they couldn't really figure out what they were looking at. He said, just go down. You know, you've got specialist capability. They may need it. And, just go down and support the fight. So grab the boys up, give them the brief, started making our way down to the hotel pretty quick down when it's after 10 o'clock because there's a curfew on. So we zipped down there, got out of the vehicles, left the vehicles on the inner cordon so we didn't get hit on the way in. You know, for lights and stuff like that, there's a chance you get hit. It's not going to help us. So we got out of the vehicles and sort of stayed in the shadows, made our way up to the incident control point, had a quick talk with the CO of the CIU just to get a gauge of what was happening, gave us a quick heads up, grabbed 10 other CIU blokes that he had with him just so we had comms going up the driveway so we didn't get shot by the Afghan National Police coming up. Everyone was jittery, you know, like, and at that point in time, the coordination was okay, but there's still room for improvement, and, you know, you don't want to do anything, you announce your presence is basically what I'm saying. Announce your presence and there's less chance of you getting shot. So we slowly walked up there. They called out to the Afghan National Police guy who's happy. And then once we got to the inner cordon, all hell broke loose again. A lot of shooting off the roof between the Afghan National Police and the terrorists on the roof. Now, you know, we could have got into it, but I'll leave them to get it. They can do that. You know what I mean? Like me and Steve Askin decided we'd just go up on top of the hill. We'll find out where we need to get into the hotel, like the door, talk to our team that was already inside with the CIU and, you know, make sure we get in the right entry rather than trying to guess it. So
had you received comms at this point about that they were planning on cutting people's heads off and throwing them from the top?
Nah, that was later on. Yeah, sort of, can't remember when, maybe in the middle. I got comms at some point talking about they were going to start doing some pretty horrendous things.
Right.
And again, that was information that was good for us because we knew we had to get to a certain place at a certain time. We had to do it very quickly. So we needed to get them in front of us as soon as possible, basically, and start disrupting their decision making. You know, obviously, one of the decisions was they're going to do that. So we're peering across the car park. The scum battle's going on. I got on my comms and said, "Hey, where are you guys?" They gave us a bit of a flash with their light. all the lights were off in the hotel at that time. Went around behind the Afghan National Police and sort of ran in, did like a hard target maneuver, which is basically one at a time, just ran into the lobby just to make it harder for them to target you if they're, you know, sitting in a room or something like that. Got inside, all of us got inside. Like I said, it was pitch black. I could see a terrorist had already been knocked over. He He was wearing a suicide vest. He had an automatic weapon. He had an AK-47. He had grenades. He had a 40mm grenade launcher underneath his AK-47 as well. He had rounds for that. He had energy drinks, food, a little backpack. They all had new shoes. They must have been rewarded with new shoes for their efforts. He had been knocked over by a security guard in the initial attack, and the CIU, when they first got into the lobby, started making a way up to the stairs to where he was sort of hiding, and he started engaging the CIU, but the CIU kept their heads and just yelled out to him and said, hey, identify yourself. He said, I'm a security guard for the hotel. And they said, oh, okay, come forward. We're the CIU. Cleared him off. He had gone to the, pissed himself, unfortunately. But, obviously that was the kind of pressure he's under at that particular point in that. Yeah, 100%. And, well done to him, for knocking this guy over. Hopefully he got some recognition for that. So looking at that guy on the floor, I was like, okay, this is what we're dealing with. And I had to assume that everyone was dressed the same and we're arranged in the same order. So we're dealing with people with suicide vests. And so when that happens, it's all well and good having someone with a weapon. Well, when you've got a suicide vest as well, that puts another dimension on it as well.
The dimension, they are going there to die.
Yeah, always. Yeah. So it's always going to be a hard fight for us. And I'm not going to run to my death, and I'm not going to expect my team to run to their death as well. We're just nice and slow. We're not going to run to our deaths. We'll just make sure that we are in the best possible position to neutralise or destroy them, and that's the way. And just try not to get caught up in the explosion itself. Especially when you corner them into rooms. They'll stay in there and wait, and as we saw. So the biggest thing that I made an assessment on first was that the CIU hadn't been trained in any type of multi-level building. So really they've just been doing high-risk arrests and compounds, single-level, multi-level compounds, or sort of buildings within Kabul city. So all sort of, small, low-level. The hotel, big, 150 rooms, 5 levels plus a roof, everything else to do with it. It's a completely different skill set you need for that. Now, we've done that before, but I had a smaller team this time round. Like, we'd reduced our numbers for the next 3 rotations. And so I had a smaller team. So I decided to put the boys up the front, as in our operators, because we had MVGs, we've got the skill set, we're force multipliers, and that we have skills, experience, and the weapon systems and tactics.
Plus, you got the map of the hotel as well, right?
No. I wish. That's what's called combat multiplier. Where you've got a bit more in your tank, and you can take on the numbers that are in front of you. Started making way down the corridor. To the left was the internet room. In the internet room, someone was slumped against the wall. I went in there and checked this gentleman. He was dead, so I left him there. He was just emailing someone, unfortunately, and this is the kind of people they are, they're shooting innocent civilians, that don't have weapons, can't defend themselves. Got out of there, and just we were basically doing it by feel, so we sort of decided, yep, we'll go left, went round to the left into the kitchen area, and then at the back of the kitchen area was the northern stairwell stairs. So that was a stroke of luck that we got in there, because we're actually looking for those stairs. So we had a discussion. We said, hey, we'll just start clearing floor by floor and start making our way up. But it soon became apparent that we needed to get up on the roof immediately. There was just too much fire coming off the roof, and it was quite consistent. And so we just said, right, let's get to the top of the roof. Let's clear these guys out, and then we'll just come back through the hotel and start clearing it room by room. And it's going to take a bit of time, but we just need to clear what's the real threat up on the roof at the moment and causing people problems on the outside, and then come back down. Started making our way up the stairwell. CIU, like we said, hadn't done anything to do with hotels. They'd done no, covert clearances of stairwells and bits and pieces, like sneaking through the building. They're just making a hell of a lot of noise. So what we didn't know was at the top of the stairwell, one of the terrorists was holding the stairwell at the top. He had an AK-47, he had rockets, he had grenades, and all that kind of stuff. He was ready, holding the top of the stairwell. So they could hear us coming up. So he sent one of the terrorists came down to meet us. He met us at the fourth floor and not with a smile. So Steve Askin was the lead assaulter, and basically he came around the the stairwell, because the fire stairs sort of go up like that, and they switch back. Came around, terrorists came around the sort of more or less face to face, maybe like from me to you, what's that, about 1.5 meters or something like that.
Oh wow!
And then just they both started firing straight away, boom, and Steve knocked him over. I don't know where this guy's rounds went, probably skimmed off the side of his body arm. I think he was pretty lucky, but he stood his ground. But that guy, the terrorist that got knocked over, he just immediately slumped down and then just got straight back up and started running. So he must have been on adrenaline, ran back to the top of the stairwell, and then as he got past his man at the top, then we started taking a heavy weight of fire. The guy that got shot and slumped out and dropped down on top of the roof above us, the ISR platform footage that we got later showed him, coming out, dropping to the ground. One of his mates came over to him, and they must have had a discussion about what we believe was, hey, I'm going to blow myself up. And he was probably saying, yeah, it's probably a good idea. And then his mate sort of walked away to give him space to blow himself up. He sort of walked around the top of where the stairwell was, where the shed was, and got away from him. But he walked in line with him into an open space just as he detonated, and basically took both of them out, and it was win-win for us. We didn't know it at the time. We just heard a big explosion at the top. So what's that? Because we're too busy in a gun battle, at the bottom of the stairs. Now, it's not the best position to be in when you get engaged by elevated enemy with grenades and automatic fire. It's in a stairwell. All those things are working against you. So we started getting into winning the firefight. Now, this all happened very quickly. So initial engagement, heavy weight of fire, detonation. Steve's still in the center of the stairwell. Like this was within seconds. So the heavy weight of fire was followed up by grenades. This guy started throwing down grenades as well. First grenade sort of landed at Steve's feet, and we were kind of in line, like where the stairs were, was sort of in line with where he was standing there. And basically it landed, he called grenade, and then he started running out towards the fourth floor. The door was open, and it was an uncleared floor. You know what I mean when I'm saying that? We hadn't cleared it yet, so there could have been someone in there. So he ran out, and the grenade basically just followed him all the way out into that floor, detonated, dropped him on his ass. He was concussed, and he took a bit of shrapnel up his back arms and legs. Now, we couldn't just run across the stairwell and grab him initially, because we're taking a heavy weight of fire at the top. So we had a lot of things going. I was yelling out to Steve, we're trying to win the firefight, and that type of thing, and just sort of hunkering down with these grenades coming down. All of a sudden, everything went silent. So we managed to deal with the threat above our heads. And then we called out to Steve, and it took a while for him to respond. And then he came out, and you could see he had a little bit of blood and that kind of thing coming off him. He said, "You right, man?" Yeah, no worries. And I said, "Oh, come across to us, and then we're going to move down. We'll move down into the stairwell." So we started laying down some covering fire, got him back across to us, and then we moved down to the third floor to reorientate ourselves and figure out a different plan of attack. So we had to assume that guy was still up there. We couldn't just keep going. You'll just start losing people. The closer you get to the top, you're going to start losing people. It's just going to be difficult. So came back down, got CRU just to hold that stairwell, and then went down the third floor, and I started talking to the squadron commander to work out a plan, like divvying up the tasks. So me and the rest of the SAS members were going to go across to the southern stairwell and try and make entry up that way, see if we could find a clear space so we can get up on the roof. And then the CRU squadrons were going to start shifting hotel guests down to the kitchen, just really, really slowly. The hardest thing about that was that they didn't want to come out of their rooms. They didn't know it was friend or foe, so banging on the rooms, and people were reluctant to open the doors that point in time. But it was at that point, we're talking about flow. This is where I found out I stopped talking to the squadron commander. He went away and started, getting after his plan, and I just felt like I was calm as anything, like kind of this calm, sitting on the couch, watching a movie, calm, and
Do you remember that in the moment, or
right in the moment? It just happened. I just
You're just like,
realized,
I'm in control.
I just
I've got
realized
this.
it's like, whoa, man, I'm calm, and as I said before, is that my brain was making a visual picture of everything that was happening below me, like almost like a three-dimensional picture of what was happening below me. I could hear the CRU in the stairwell. I knew they were moving through in the down the floors below us. I could see the kitchen we would come from, like a mind map, and then same what was happening above us. There was a lot of fire still coming backwards and forwards off the roof, so they were shooting towards the Afghan National Police. And at that time, we had a Black Hawk with a couple of helo snipers from our team that were just moving, circling the hotel and engaging terrorists on the roof. And they were trying to basically shoot the helicopter out of the sky. And I could see all of this in my head now. You could probably say, well, you could hear it, see it, but I had this visual representation in my head, and it's amazing what flow does. And that's what I was doing. I've never had that before, and I've never had it since. And then the best thing about it just made my decision very clear, well considered, and very easy. I could think ahead very, very easily. There was nothing in my way. Basically, I just had full, like wide open, doors open ability to do what we needed to do. So it was amazing. And then I just focused on what we needed to do past that point. So grabbed that group. I was expecting to see a Black Hawk spinning out of control, to be honest, the amount of fire that was coming off the roof, and like Black Hawk down style, because there was some slits in the fire stairs, and I thought I was going to see that spinning out of control, and I was in my own mind was already thinking about how I was going to create a rescue plan for that. That just would have put another level of complexity on the task, but you got to be prepared for that, and we'd have to deal with it. So moved down the corridor, started making way up the southern stairwell. There's 6 of us. Going up against potentially, I don't know how many people. It was just, whatever numbers we're gonna face. So went up there, found that there was a bar across the door, so we couldn't, and it was padlocked, so we couldn't just open the door and get out. So we chucked one of our explosive charges on the door. Now, when this all kicked off, we weren't set up for a hotel attack, like clearing hotels out. So explosives were designed for more single level dwellings, just making entry into a door, external door, and external doors like a wall or something, and maybe some internal door charges and bits and pieces. So we just had to make use of what we had, chucked it up there, and then basically moved down one flight. And I just gave the boys a bit of a battle brief and just said, "Hey man, I'll see you guys on the other side." And and then I just rang the headquarters and said, we're about to make entry on the roof. And they said, "Yep, cool. We're just gonna get the helo sniping platform to take a wider arc." And
in the book, you write about this point, and it reminding you of what you imagine it would have felt like to get up and get out of the trenches, and you don't know what's there, but that's your duty. You just have to go, right? Is that it? The team talk with the 6 of you is like, right, we don't know what's there, but we're 100%. Just going.
Yeah, it was all of that. No, we don't know how many numbers there are. Just get in there. Whoever's up there is a bad guy. Just get in there and drop them, and that's it. There's no hotel guests or anything up there. Everyone there's got a weapon, so let's just get after it. I mean, the sort of me thinking about World War I and the guys in the trenches in the stairwell. There's with the available light we had, I just remember seeing the flash of the New Zealand badge on his arm, and then it sort of brought me back. I was thinking, man, it's probably the same thing. I don't know why I thought that. It just came into my mind. We don't control our thoughts, but that came into my mind. Put fresh magazines on our weapons. We set to go, boys. Yep. And then, it's one of those points where you're kind of, it's real. Like this is you can smell fear. It's one of those things, and it's starting to, we don't know what we're coming up against. So gave the standby go. Helicopter was off. Bam, blew that door off its hinges. Chucked a couple of grenades out, and then we moved out on the roof and started getting amongst it. Moved out into an extended line. Basically, what we could see in front of us was satellite dishes on big concrete platforms. There's quite a number of them, so good place for people to lie in wait, and we'll call it cover. Cover is where you can get behind it and it can actually take bullets, so you can start firing at people that are coming after you. So we're in an open ground, they had the cover. So we started making our way through, and right off the bat, we just started shooting at likely areas that they'd potentially be shooting us from. There was a guy under one of the satellite dishes. We engaged him. We started to split into two. We just naturally started to split into two teams. We just know what to do naturally. We've trained enough times. We know where to go and what we need to do. We don't need to talk about it. So we moved left and right. I started shooting at this. I could see a leg sticking out from behind one of those concrete platforms, and I started engaging it. But as I came around to do the final coup de grace, it was just a leg. It was one of the legs that had blown off someone's body. You know what I mean? And as we got closer to the northern end of the stairwell, it was just covered in legs, arms, meat, head, blood, guts, all of it. You know what I mean? It was just like a butcher shop. So a couple of them already clacked off. Or one of them was actually, one of the guys got sort of blew up as he was being engaged by one of the helo snipers from above. They actually hit I'm not too sure what happened there. It was very strange. It was like a fluke shot. It just so happened to detonate the suicide vest. So he just disappeared into a mist. So yeah, we're sort of walking over that stuff. Anyway, went up there. I was shot at a leg. It's very sad.
You're taking us all in, right? This is in a couple of seconds, and you're there, and you're seeing all the body pieces and fire and far out. Man.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have a comment there. I'm a bit blown away by it.
Well, I was thinking it's your storytelling is so surreal in that it's very visceral, but the experience of sitting opposite you and knowing that you lived it and you're retelling it from a first-person experience is quite a thing. Like, it's one thing to read it, it's one thing to hear it, it's another thing, as I said before, to hear it in your voice, and then it's another thing again to put the pieces of the puzzle together and go, fucking hell, 13 years ago, that was your reality.
Yeah. It's on.
It's fucking wild.
Yeah. Do you think I should have audioed my book? Did the voice?
The voice was good. The voice was good.
I was asked. I said, "No, I'm good."
Yeah, but I wonder, and I was going to wait for later on, but I wonder, do you deliberately have to take the emotion out of your retelling of it?
I've told it so many times now that it's kind of I can walk it through pretty quick. Sometimes I catch myself at certain points. If I talk about Steve, he's that'll slow me down a bit, but something I always get through. But the process itself, sometimes it'll catch me, and I'll take a deep breath because it's because in my mind when I'm talking about it, I have a reel in my head that I'm bringing it out of, and it's etched into my brain. Like I just, and in the same way, the light and the dark and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so we ended up splitting into two teams, started making our way around this big shed that was behind these satellite dishes, was the elevator mechanism room. So quite a big shed, and then behind that was the end of the northern end of the roof, and we're sort of moving from south to north. So the team that was on the left started moving around and then started getting into a gun battle with the remaining terrorists, which was on the other side of the building. So they started shooting. We're like, oh, yeah, cool. Oh, well, see if we can get around this guy. So we started moving around. Now, he might have, I don't know what he was doing, but he must have known he was either doing the same thing we were doing. He was trying to get around the team that were there, and we were doing the same thing, going around to get around behind him, and I think he might have come out and slowly looked and came back. I didn't see him, but I'm thinking he's seen it. He knew he was going to get it. And we started coming around, and then he just detonated himself straight away. So it was a massive explosion as we were coming around the side of the elevator mechanism room. And then we're like, well, okay, must be the last one. Came back around, and then he was the last one. We got to the end of the roof, and then got inside the northern stairwell, entry where we come out onto the roof. So I had a little shed on top of it, and the guy at the top there was dead. Make sure he was neutralised, and then that wasn't the end of it. It was sort of like, yep, cool. Went around, cleared the elevator mechanism room. That was all clear, and then I got radio call straight away that the fifth floor function room below us was on fire, like fully, completely on fire, and I could see the flames lapping up over top of the roof. I was like, oh, okay, cool. All right, let's get off the roof. Don't want to get trapped up on here, otherwise we'll be jumping out into the free falling into the trees. So I called a bit of a hasty evacuation, which is basically, get down into the rooms, clear everyone out into the kitchen, so that, just in case the whole hotel goes up in flames, want to save as many people as we possibly can. We banged the first fire alarm, didn't work. Second one didn't work. Whoever's the director of health and safety for that hotel needs to be sacked. Sprinklers didn't work or anything like that. And I was like, oh, okay. Anyway,
imagine that hotel needed a few things.
I think so. Yeah, after that, yeah, we did quite a bit of damage, and so did they. So, and then we started going room to room. And as I said, it took a long time for people to get out of their rooms because they weren't too sure whether or not to trust us. And then there was a number of people in there, there's Afghans, there was some foreign diplomats and that bits and pieces. So when they kind of heard us English speaking, they were coming out, and then, so we moved everyone down the Northern stairwell into the kitchen. We searched them, made sure no one had weapons and bits and pieces, and then held them in the kitchen. So the fifth floor was the function room was on fire, and we're expecting the whole fifth floor to go up. So the fire service were called in. We were down in the kitchen at this point, and they went up. And so these firefighters came in with hoses, but they also had their AK-47s just in case. You don't see that in New Zealand, and nor should you. So they were ready to go just in case. And they were happy just to get to the top and put this fire out. So we kind of followed them up and got back out onto the roof. By this time, there was a lot of security forces in the hotel. They're running through the different floors, and we've been through the floors and cleared them all out. So we're pretty happy with that. Those floors 1 to 4 were clear. It's just the fifth floor that had a question mark on it. So we tried to make entry into the fifth floor. Couldn't get in there. There's just too much smoke. So we thought, well, no one's going to be walking up and down that corridor for a start because it's just too thick unless they want to die in about 5 or 10 seconds. They won't be able to breathe. So we went all the way to the top of the hotel, got up on the roof, and did a what we call a battle damage assessment. So we're just basically going up there, counting bodies best we can, checking the weapons, making sure the weapons are safe, making their suicide vest safe. We had an EOD pair there with us as well, so they did their job, making those explosive devices safe, took the magazines off the weapons, cleared them, all that kind of stuff. So when the Afghan, police came up, they can do the investigation because essentially it's a criminal, crime scene. So we did what we needed to do, and then started counting up the weapons and bits and pieces, and then started talking to each other. All of a sudden, after about 30 minutes of just hanging out on the roof, we just heard a lot of automatic fire come out of the fifth floor. So we didn't know that the firefighters had put out the fire at that point, and what we didn't know as well is that the CIU had left. They'd left without telling us. They'd gone back to Camp Olympus to reorganise themselves to get ready for potentially another attack in the city, which is the way they do business. But they never told us they left. We just assumed they were still there, So now we didn't have comms connection with the Afghan security forces, and this is where things start going weird and chaotic for us. So we're standing up there. Automatic fire came out of the fifth floor, and then all of a sudden we started taking a whole lot of rounds from all angles of the building. Now, I didn't know that we were being shot at by the inner cordon, so they just saw us up on the roof, thought it was us firing at them, and started firing at us, and so we had to take cover immediately. And then I was just sitting there sort of lying down, and I was thinking, man, none of the rounds are impacting on us. I was actually thinking it was a secondary attack from the hills, like they started engaging us from the hills and it was part of their plan. And I could only assume that. And then I was thinking, no, I can't see anything happening. I was looking up on the hill and any points that I thought they could sort of shoot us from. And no one was there. So we crawled to the edge of the roof and sort of poked our heads over and waved out, and it was the inner cordon obviously been shooting at us, and then they stopped. And they're like, oh, sorry, bro, and
my bad.
Yeah, I won't do that again. I won't do that again. Let's just fast forward 5 minutes. And so I went, okay, cool. And then I said, where's the CIU? And the interpreter said, oh, they've left. And I was like, all right, well, it's up to us then. We're gonna have to sort this out. So there's obviously one more remaining. Let's go down there. So went down to the fifth floor. We're sort of on the other side of the function area where we exited the roof, and basically weird. Just these 3 Russian pilots dressed in their white uniforms and their little trundler, their carry-on luggage bags, just casually walking over, no emotion on their faces, just casually walking over their things, and they're like, oh. hey. And then
Just another day.
Oh, man. It's like, man, you guys okay? He's like, it's okay. It's okay. You know, and then they just disappeared down, and obviously went out to Kabul
Seen it a million
International
times.
Airport and started their, you know,
wild.
day work. It was wild, you know, clean, nice and clean, you know, sorted out. You know, they'd just been in the fifth floor, like full of smoke.
Unreal. Yeah.
Wrote
Short
it out.
sleeves?
Yeah, short sleeves.
That's how you knew they were pilots, right?
Pink caps. They're fully good to go.
Just oblivious to the gunfight and
We're
the
good, you know.
people blowing themselves up
Oh,
around you.
yeah, don't worry about it.
Amazing detail.
It was crazy. Anyway, it's like, okay, right, this is where we are. Anyway, we couldn't, so we decided that we're going to go, instead of going through the fifth floor function room directly down the corridor, we're going to go around this balcony where it shot out from, because we still really didn't have a good orientation of how the layout of the hotel was. So we decided to go where we were shooting from and start back from there. Went out onto this balcony, and on the balcony there was air conditioning ducting past that point where it expended AK-47 round cartridges. And then, we started making our way there to where the cartridges were. And I said, should we throw a grenade in or a flashbang? What do you reckon, boys? And he said, we'll throw in a flashbang just in case there's any, some more pilots or something coming out. You know, we wanted to make sure it's non-lethal.
Just because the rest of the crew are in there.
Yeah. And so
Vladimir.
And so we threw the flashbang there. It started clacking off, and then all of a sudden we just took a massive heavy weight of fire from the inner cordon again. We just ducked down and pressed ourselves against these panels that were below the balcony, and only so wide. And I didn't even know what I was pressing up against, but thankfully it was concrete, you know, not very thick. I don't know, maybe an inch and a half thick, and I think it was reinforced as well, because nothing was going in and out. And we just took a heavy weight of fire from the inner cordon. And I remember looking up on the wall. I don't know how long we were there. It was minutes maybe. I mean, any second is long enough, you know. And I was just hoping not to see big chunks coming off the wall that would represent, you know, a 12.7 or a 50 cal equivalent round, you know, going into the concrete, because we wouldn't have lasted behind these panels, because as soon as they start going in, they'll be going in and out, you know, and they'll be in and out of us too. So the only thing that saved us that day were those panels, because I'm telling you now, that whole assault group would be gone. It'd be the greatest loss of life in New Zealand you ever saw, you know. And again, like this, luck, like, you know, it's just one of those things. It's just random. So I wrote it out, and then I said, and then I looked around, and I was like, tell these guys to stop firing. And I was yelling on the radio. Turn around, there was a Afghan police guy sort of poking his head around the corner. He's just behind us, but he wasn't doing anything. And I was yelling at him to stop them firing. He wouldn't do anything. So I said, get the interpreter. I just had to calm myself down, basically. I said, get the interpreter to tell this inner cordon to stop firing, or we're all going to die. And he ended up popping himself up and telling them to stop. So they stopped. And I said, is everyone okay? And everyone went, yeah. And then Steve was in front of me, and he said, no, I'm not okay, man. I think I've been shot through the head. So I said, I'll turn around, and he had taken a round through the side of his head, had gone out sort of underneath his ear. And his ear was sort of hanging off a little bit. And I said, he'd been shot through the ear. Now, obviously, he had taken shrapnel rounds in the stairwell. You know, he'd been shot through the ear, and I just looked him in the eyes, and this, you know, sort of leans into one of our tenants, human humility, and I said, have you had enough yet? And we both laughed. You know what I mean? But that's how we roll. You know, I said, you had enough? You had enough? And he goes, no, I'm good, man. And I went, no, you're going to hospital. But he wanted to stay, He wanted to stay. And I said, hey, boys, that's it, man. We don't have comms with the inner cordon. This is just going to keep happening. So rather than me wasting lives, we're going to go back down, and we'll take Steve to hospital. Everyone was in agreement. So we went down, got him patched up, started making way to the hospital, left, you know, the hotel's crawling security. And I just said, you guys, I did a handover to the Afghan National Police Commander downstairs. I said, listen, man, you guys have got it. You know, we don't have comms with you, so we can't coordinate. He said, okay, yep, no worries. So we got in the vehicle, started travelling back, and then all of a sudden we saw the CRU racing back to the hotel. So I called back up a headquarters and said, what's the CRU doing? They said, they're heading back. So I said, all right then, boys, we're going back, because wherever the CRU go, we're going. So we turned up, and I said, listen, tell us if you're don't just leave us hanging. We're here, for you. And they said, okay, no, sorry. And so I just gave them the plan about just sequentially going through each floor and just doing a double check that no one's in there, specifically taking caution when you go up on the 5th floor. I said, we'll stay down here. If you get into trouble, just let us know and we'll come up and support you. So they went up, group went out onto the 5th floor like they did, like we did. And I talked about air conditioning ducting. They started crossing over the air conditioning ducting. And a sort of a real rudimentary IED was placed in there. It was basically a grenade on a tripwire. So they ended up detonating that. Took a chunk out of one of the CIU guy's arms. He came running downstairs. We heard the explosion. He came downstairs with this chunk out of his arm. And I said, what happened, man? He said, there's a big explosion upstairs. So I said, all right, let's go up. Took our EOD guys up there as well. They went up there, pulled the rest of the air conditioning ducting out of the way to make sure there's no other explosive devices in it. And then I thought, okay, well, while we're here, let's just start getting down the 5th floor. I said we weren't going to do it, but we're here now. So let's just complete the job. So again, we weren't set up for a hotel option. We had a number of charges to blow open doors and that kind of thing. We didn't have our manual entry tools and bits and pieces. We did our best to do sort of a manual entry with our hands and kicking in doors. And we used a CIU at the start, but they soon blew out, and then we had to take the lead. So we got to room 524. I was on a right angle covering the corridor, and I had my entry team making their way into this next room. So they started opening the door, and as soon as the door opened, boom, there was a massive explosion. and it was at this point that everything slowed down in my mind, like it went into that slow motion vision. Again, I haven't had that before, and I haven't had it since. Everything slowed right down. I could see this, big ball of smoke just slowly expanding in front of me. And then slowly I saw the CIU crawling out of the rubble with, looks of disbelief and shock on their faces, and I sort of pulled them past me. And then the smoke slowly cleared, and I could see one of the boys slumped up against the wall opposite the door, obviously one of the entry team guys. And then I heard someone say, man down. Now, whenever we do our training in the regiment, we do like evacuations of people, it's always the heaviest guy. We always have the heaviest guy, the person that's 100 kegs, and then they're carrying equipment and that kind of thing. And he was it. It was one of those scenarios. It's like, here we go. And he was unconscious at the time. I went in, grabbed him, picked him up. I had enough adrenaline in my body, picked him up, managed to pick him up, pulled him off to the side. I said, hey man, you're right. And he sort of woke up, but he was in a bit of a shit state. So I moved him out of the corridor down to the end of the 5th floor there, sat him down on a chair, and he started to go into shock, and then he was slowly, very quickly going into becoming unconscious. So I yelled in his ear to stay awake, just to wake up, to force himself to wake up, because obviously when people get into shock, it just goes further and further and deeper into an area we don't want them to be in. And he had ball bearings in him and bits and pieces. So, he'd taken the full brunt. If it had been anyone else who was maybe a little bit slighter, I'm not too sure how that would have worked out for them. It's just the fact that he was a big man. He was able to take it like a champion, you know what I mean? So, left the boys to do that, reorientated myself and started moving down the corridor, and just to take stock if anyone else needed to be pulled out or what was the deal. So I just said, I saw one of our guys here and I said, hey, what was it? Was it a IED or was it a suicide vest? And he said, it's a suicide vest. And I said, how do you know that? And he said, well, look, his head's at the door. And the guy's head was literally at the door, and the room was just gone. You know what I mean? There was just a pile of, there was like water spewing out of the pipes, you know what I mean? Because it'd been severed. The whole room was just torn apart. And the guy I was talking to was a little bit injured as well as a couple more CIU guys, but we got away with that one again. Luck. You know what I mean? Don't know. That was the end of it, basically, for me. I was like, yeah, we're probably going to lose someone shortly. I only had a small team. I had to consider a number of things. I had a small team. I had 2 men down. Potentially both were not going to be operating past that day. And I had to think about how many people we could get back from New Zealand and in what time. And we still had more work to do. In 3 days' time, we had to execute another high-risk arrest warrant. So, bit difficult when you're low on numbers to be able to do that.
This is like 10 hours, right? And you talk about that flow state, but when you realise that is actually it, what were you like? Were you a mess?
No, it was good. I mean, it's just, again, we train back in New Zealand or wherever we're training, we train as close to realism as we possibly can. So none of this is, the difference is the rounds coming back at you and some of the other things. Like even the close proximity blasts we used to, because we do that all the time. So the blast was there, but the fact it was the suddenness, I wasn't ready for it, you know what I mean? Whereas you're ready for the blast. So it was the suddenness of the blast that was slowed my brain down. Like, whoa, wasn't expecting that. You know what I mean? And it's in a real environment. So, yeah, I don't think I was in clip. I mean, we just had to focus on the next thing. The next thing was taking that guy back to hospital. So Steve had already gone to the hospital. Now we took this guy back to the hospital. We all went down there, made sure Steve was all right. Tried to figure out what was going to happen with our second guy. He was flying to Germany. Like, basically, he flew to Germany within they got him on a flight within an hour. He was on the plane and heading to Ramstein to get patched up. He'd taken a ball bearing in the shoulder, had a ball bearing that ricocheted off his shoulder, and I think it went into his chest and maybe severed his lung. So they had to worry about that. And then, just went back, had a bit of lunch, did a debrief, crashed out, and then the SNO rudely woke me up at 6 o'clock just for a debrief and I was like, and broke it down to him. And interesting, because the discussion we had there was a little bit of a disparity between what they'd seen and heard and what actually happened, and that was interesting. And believe it or not, when we gave it about a week and I started debriefing every individual person in my team about what they saw and what they heard, there was some slightly different stories about where people were and what they were doing at that particular time, and that's that bystander effect, you know what I mean? So it was very, very interesting.
I want to just go back to Steve. I want to give you a chance to sort of talk about him as a person. But so he won a Gallantry Star for his role in this as well. We talked about the shrapnel in the bum and he got shot in the head. And then his attitude that he wasn't kind of, you basically had to retire him. He wanted to go back out there. Is that what it's all about? It just continuing to do your job until it's done?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I mean, because it's the survival of yourself and your team. Like, this is where, like I say, selection and our cycle of training and the training that we do lines up perfectly to operations. It's not until you get out there that you trust that process and it suddenly dawns on you that that's what it's there for. One foot in front of the other, it ends when it ends. You know what I mean? And it ends, and you are in one piece as much as you can. And again, it comes back to survival on the battlefield, because that's what it's all about.
It's quite a public siege as well, right?
Yeah.
Is it, like, you search it now and it's not, the detail's not really known, but was it, when you got back to base, was it like, oh, this is a big deal, photo of you here,
no.
there's a bunch of stuff going on? Like, did you realise what was happening outside of your own world?
No, we're just completely engulfed in what we had to do. And I know one of the boys said, just randomly said, man, I think it's probably the biggest, one of the biggest operations that the regiment's been in. And I was thinking, you reckon? And he said, yeah. But again, I wasn't registering it, because why? Because I was still in process mode. And what I mean by that is that I had things to do. I had to call back. I was still, busy working, and it wasn't going to finish until I'd had a shower and a feed, and then I was in my bed, then I could switch off, maybe. So, and then obviously as time went on and, the video came out and that kind of thing, was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And then, yeah, it was, she wrote.
It was a big deal about the photo, right? That, despite all of what you've done, but you got snapped by the paparazzi coming out.
Yeah. So we're supposed to, when you're out and about, particularly during the day, you should be masked up so people can't see your identity. But there's the last thing on my mind was putting a mask on my face. And we didn't expect the paparazzi to be there. They were just there, kind of. It doesn't look like it in the photo, but we kind of came up over a hill and they were there, like and around a corner, and they were kind of just right there. And as soon as we soon as we crested, they're on, burst mode, if they're with their cameras, it's just a whole lot of them. And I was saying,
makes a hell of a front cover.
yeah. I was like, oh, okay. That's why it looks natural, because we didn't even have time to even think about it. We're just too busy in our own minds. So I just said, well, can't do anything about it. That's it.
I want to move us on to post-army stuff, but just before we do, we sort of spoke about the actual award and how perhaps a bit reluctant to receive it. Were you, and I know that you were surprised to hear that you had been nominated for it, and it took sort of 2 or 3 years for that process to play out, but were you of the opinion that Steve definitely deserved it, but you were surprised that you got it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Steve, yeah, most definitely. For me, yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, I'm just part of the team. Again, the team, it was one of those situations, I've said it before, that you have a team that can make you look good, and this was like an A team. And so, if they're, giving it to me, I don't make the decisions on that. I obviously think I deserved it, but at the end of the day, it's, they gave it to me, but really, I hold that for the team, and, everyone should have got one, really.
Curious, you have very interesting job, and then you come home between tours. What the fuck does that look like? Like, you've gone from high adrenaline, high operation to every day down to the dairy for milk.
Yeah.
And that's a weird.
Yeah, that's the hardest
vacuum
thing. And coming back, you come back quite quickly, and the thing is that you have to start. And I mean, you got to figure this. I mean, you get told it, right, but you're still. You still got to figure. You don't have a puppet master above you. People tell you things that you need to do. You're either going to do them or you're not. And generally, people be talking to the psychs will be telling what you need to do. You'll get a debrief and that kind of thing. But will you really implement it? Not really. I don't remember any of those psych debriefs. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. So you really have to open your ears. It's a two-way street. They'll give you the information, but you have to apply it. if you want to, integrate yourself back into society effectively, not only post-operation, but when you leave the regiment, would leave the army or whatever service you're in. But yeah, I remember coming back very quickly. My mind was still 3/4 of the way, if not all the way back there. I'd only just come off being on call within the last week, and you're coming from a high threat based environment to zero, a non-threat based environment. Obviously there's criminals and stuff like that, but the reality, the environments couldn't be more night and day. And then you've got to figure out that you're not dreaming for a start. And the first morning you wake up in New Zealand, it's like, where am I here? Just it's weird. And it takes a long time to start actually waking up back in reality, and then starting into that integration process, coming back. And you got to understand that, the character traits that are built into you, particularly that surviving on the battlefield, zero to hero response, and, that pager mentality and stuff like that, it's hard to switch off. And you need to give it time. And, guys are coming back, that have families and wives and stuff. And there's, you can't expect it just to, seamlessly fit back to when, that person left. A completely different individual after those experiences, you know what I mean? And I'm just not too sure, what that looks like in terms of the process to make it happen, because, it's literally fly in, become part of your family again, and trying to be a dad, brother, son, father, whatever, So, very, 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 very difficult. And then past that point, because of these experiences, then you've got to figure out how to separate that operational mindset away from the training one as well, where, I've seen that as well, where that can merge, because there's a little bit more freedom within the operational environment versus training. Training's very safety rigid, making sure you're within your arcs and stuff like that. In operational environment, you can't, what it is, and try and be safe as possible, but you do push boundaries to survive and to achieve your objectives. And so there's a bit of merging in that as well.
How are you doing with it? Because after 2011, you spent another 5 years in the army and then you left. So now it's in, however many years after that. Are you doing okay now?
Yeah, good. It's taken a long time. I mean, I had to wake up basically and become more self-aware and aware of what was happening around me. So I had to be more self-aware of some of the character traits that didn't quite fit in the real world. And, one of them is like high expectations of others and myself. And that just comes down to, the pursuit of excellence in everything we do, which is one of the tenets. And that's fine. It's a great tenet that I still employ these days, but not on steroids. It doesn't need to be on steroids. You know what I mean? I don't have to be so extreme on that edge, high expectations of others. And I was expecting that from my wife and my son, just it's not realistic. And anyone else, like expecting them to be at this level all the time and organised and stuff like that. But that doesn't fit in the real world, like just manage your expectations there, Tiger. And same with myself, high expectations of myself as well. I still have them, but I'm a lot more relaxed with it. I'm not too worried if I make mistakes or, maybe I'm relaxing, that kind of like being a normal human being essentially, relaxing when I need to relax because that was hard. That was a hard thing to do as well. Just that combat mindset always, like I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and then I'll be doing MMA, just keeping in that mindset, just things like that. Zero to hero response, like a lot of our training is, just sitting around here on a table and we'll be armed and then they'll present a situation to you and you've got to go into high order violence just from here. And when you do that enough, that gets ingrained into your psyche and it can actually dribble on to, outside of the training environment or operational environment to the normal environment. That could be, me talking to you and you might say something and be like, what? Like that kind of inappropriate response to just a social situation that is benign, but again, you have to realize this and dial it back. And so it took a huge amount of time to get to self-realize and be self-aware. And now, while we have this conversation, I'm just tracking my emotional level and how I'm thinking and feeling about things. Like it's the person that's in hospital and they're tracking their vitals. It kind of looks like that in my brain where I can track where I'm going with things at any point in time. And I generally, if I feel like, that dragon wants to come out, I just overlay that with calm and patience, and I just sit there like, yeah, here we go again.
Have you got tips and tricks and things that you actively do that you're comfortable to share?
So I started with, I read the book. I know this is my book, but I'll recommend another book. Joe Dispenza, the Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It's about breaking your character traits down. I don't know if have you read that book before?
No.
It's a pretty good book. That's a good starting point if you want to break your character traits down. So once I read that, I was like, okay, cool. Part of what he teaches is meditative breathing, and people don't think it's that effective, but to get us from our sympathetic to our parasympathetic nervous system, it needs to happen. We know there's a lot of research out there that tells us that it does work. It worked for me, but on top of that, also what it teaches you is refocusing. So it's again, having conversation with someone and our thoughts dribble away somewhere else. It's, grabbing that thought, bringing it back and staying in the present moment and just focusing on what we are doing, not what's happening in the past or in the present or, what you've just said and all that kind of thing, and sort of taking control over your thoughts and your feelings. And so that takes a long time, but once you got it, you've got it. That's it. You've created new neural pathways. You're more aware of yourself. And on top of that, some of those simple practices of visualization, but the refocus stuff is probably the key to it all. You know what I mean? It's just coming back to the present time and time again, and being where you need to be in the present moment. Because not only is that good for us when we're engaging with others and being calm and patient, but it's good for potentially guys who are still serving, where they need to be present with their families. And drum out that distraction, that noise, that pager mentality, where, I can get called out at any time, and if, half their focus is over here, half their focus is over there. When you're with your family, you're with your family. When you're out operating, you're out operating. We're out training, you're out training. But never the twain shall meet. It's separating the warrior from the family man, and you got to figure out how you're going to make that transition, because that's a real hard one. One of the things I picked up on early on was that once my son was born, I would, I was a troop commander at the time, and one of the unofficial expectations was that, in my own mind, I had to stay there till 6, 7 at night, wait till the boys are left, last one to leave, first one in, that kind of thing. But I had a young son, and I couldn't do that. And my wife's there all day looking after our son, and she's highly ambitious, and she's got things she needs to do as well, and you know who I'm talking about. So I had to pull my weight, but I'd get into my car and then start driving home, and the closer I get to home, the more angry I get. And then I get home, and then basically I just bring my bag of shit into the house and expect everyone to eat it, just be, angry and distant and distracted and that kind of thing. And at one point I got into my car and I was thinking, man, why do I do that? And I was looking at my car was facing the compound, and I was sitting there looking at the compound, and I was like, and what I, symbolism, you know what I mean? I was sitting there and I was like, right, okay, I think I've got a higher strategic purpose, and she's pulling me away from that strategic purpose. You know what I mean? That's what I came down to. And that's exactly what it was. You know what I mean? It's like, why am I getting pissed off that I have to leave at 4:30 to go and see my wife and son? Like, what's wrong with you? Pull your head in, mate. And so the way I got around being at like a level 10, just angry, and it's not like I went home and I was physically violent or anything like that. I was just being a pain in the ass is what I was being. I'd just stop off the side of the road, do some breathing, 5-10 minutes, and that would always calm me down. And then I'd have to, really put the effort into focusing on being how I was going to be walking in the door, regardless of how I felt. And then after a while, it just happens. You know what I mean? And we know this because, again, research shows us that we can, thread our neural pathways and get better, responses. And so, if you're willing to put in the effort, and unfortunately there is a lot of effort. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't get big muscles by sitting at home on the couch. You know what I mean? If you want to do the reps, do the reps. And then it'll just come and it makes it a lot easier. And then you don't have to do the reps that much anymore because you've already changed the way you think and feel about things. And once you got that full self-awareness, I mean, I've still got stuff to work on, but I'll tell you what, man, I'm two different people. Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, you speaking out on these things with your backstory is going to be so powerful for so many, perhaps more so military men. But I wondered how much this sort of stuff gets. You've done a lot of this work since you've left, I imagine. But how common is conversations around improving your sort of mental space? In the military environment, yeah. I don't know what it's like now. Back then, not really. We didn't really talk about any of that stuff. In fact, if someone talked to me about meditative breathing, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, that's still, I'm not a monk. But it's all there. It's all there. And unless you're willing to attempt it and give it its due diligence and put the effort into it, you're never going to know. I can't help you. I can talk about it all day. I'm not going to sit there and be, taking classes and stuff like that. You figure it out. I'm telling you right now, it works. You either do it or you don't. It's up to you. So it may take 6 months. It may take a year. But at the end of the day, it works. It does work. Work for me. It'll work for you. We're humans. We're the same. So, and the research is there. The research tells us it works as well. But you just got to stick with it. So, that's all I can say about that. Some of that low-hanging fruit stuff really does work wonders for other people. Obviously they will need some deeper cognitive development, and I acknowledge that as well. Not everyone will be able to do that because they'll need some, they may need clinical psychs and they may need drugs and stuff like that because there's things going on inside them that the breathing can't help. But essentially, if I'd known this before I'd gone in, maybe I would have had a longer career because, coming out I was fully burnt out, so, if I'd known that stuff, it would have been thrown in my face a little bit better or was part of the culture, it definitely would have helped big time. One of the things you also did was make a conscious decision not to chase a vocation in private security, which would have been probably quite an easy switch to make. Yep. And then you went down elite sport, master's degree, like you did all of these things
that seems like a very deliberate choice to move as far away from military and the armed forces.
Correct. Yeah, I did a little bit of thinking about what I wanted to do, and there was opportunity to do the private security stuff, but then again, like put in front of me were opportunities to start moving into professional sport. And I mean, when I got out, I had my master's to complete. I did some work on the house, so I had like 6 months worth of renovations that I needed to get across, and I was creating the security company in my head that I was going to be a part of, and then kind of, do I really want to do that? I started having this conversation with myself, and then Roger Mortar, a mate of mine, he worked in elite sport at the time, and said, hey, they're looking for a leadership culture coach for the upcoming World Cup for the Kiwi Rugby League team. Do you want to do it? And I said, yeah, let's go meet the coach. So went and met with David Kidwell. He was happy, and that's all she wrote. Past that point, then I just decided, man, it's time to orientate in the right direction. And then it just kept going, and I was thinking, yeah, the only way I'm going to break free and get better is by doing stuff that's completely opposite to what I've been doing. And, you look where I am now. I'm in a school. If you asked me 10 years ago, I'd be working in a school with boys and developing boys. I'd say you're kidding me, but it's been the best thing that's probably ever happened.
Yeah, how important is, in your opinion, is that positive role modelling for young men?
100%. Yeah, I think I've got a story to tell. I don't tell them the whole story, although I know that they're going to figure it out. I mean, they'll probably watch this podcast.
Surprise!
They're not stupid.
How old are the students that you're working with?
10 to like 17.
Yeah, it's an impressionable age.
Oh, 100%. But they force you to change. So my approach to them is not the approach that I take in the military. You got to be very soft, and you got to make that connection with them, and it's all genuine. These are good boys, man, and they do phenomenal things, and it's really good to see the smiles on their faces, and and them getting better and developing, and just really loving what we're putting in front of them. So yeah, they've done a lot. They've done a lot for me, and also the people that I work with as well. They've done a lot for me as well, because they're a different kettle of fish again. The high performance sports environment, like I said, it has similarities to the military, but again, I had to adjust. I had to adjust my approach again. I mean, you can't. Yeah, it's just different, and that's the only thing I can say is that, if you are getting out, I mean, yeah, by all means go and do the private security thing. But if you see that you're not being able to maintain relationships, and you're going through multiple divorces and stuff like that, you may want to rethink what you're doing.
Just on the school thing, remember at high school, like, you'd hear rumours about teachers, and they'd often not be true, but they'd sort of make up stories about the incredible shit they'd done.
Yeah.
Imagine Jamie,
exactly.
and like word getting around, like, yeah, have you heard about Mr. Pennell? Holy shit. Man has done some stuff.
Yeah.
Just quickly on the elite sports stuff, what are you getting brought in to specifically do? Is it around communication and how to create good leaders?
Yeah, basically resilience, culture and leadership. And it just depends on what the organisation needs and what they're after. And I mean, there's common themes through a lot of organisations that we work with. One of them's mainly communication and how to lead effectively. And for the teams, it's a lot of it's to do with connection between the coaches, the player leaders, and the players themselves, and then sort of connecting the whole football department, if you like, together, or the whole organisation together, if you like. But yeah, it just depends on what they're lacking. So, it's been really enjoyable.
I'm curious about your experiences and how they've shaped your view now on like love and relationships, personal relationships. Are they, I'm putting words in your mouth here, but are they even more valuable given all of the stuff that you've seen in the real world?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I know that, after Steve died, Steve to me was like made of concrete. I didn't think he'd ever die. That hit me like a brick, because I really, when I first heard about it, and it was really early on when they were figuring out what had happened, I was like, nah, Steve can handle anything, you know what I mean? But this was way outside of his control. And so, yeah, his death and obviously everything that I've seen, life is pretty short, you could step outside, I could walk down the street now and that'll be it. and so it'll be be gone in a heartbeat, and it'll be happening right now, So when we die, I think it'll be, man, that was quick, It'll just be one of those things. If you've got time to think about it, of course, I can't believe it. So it's made me value life and relationships and my time for my family a hell of a lot more. Yeah.
Can you tell us about what No Duff is?
No Duff is an organisation that's basically made up of a number of volunteers across all three services of the military. It was created by a couple of infantrymen. You can look them up online, but essentially it was a national network, but it's kind of gone global because boys are stretched out all across the world. And if there's any type of veteran in need, they might be suffering hard times, or, sometimes you hear about, someone will be talking to a homeless guy on the street and realise that he's, a Kiwi and he needs some help and stuff like that. And so they'll get around and provide that support as much as they possibly can. Now, I don't know what type of funding they're getting at the moment. I know they got some government funding there for a while. I don't know what it looks like at the moment, but it's never enough. But I think to me personally, I think it's the only well-functioning sort of voluntary organisation that's been created that has global reach. So they've done a really good thing there, just getting the boys together, and it's all done via phone, social media, that type of thing, and they do as much as they can, up until including, connecting them with whatever services they need and money and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a really good thing.
We're on the home straight now. This has been an epic. I know they're good eps when time flies by, but I just wanted to timestamp us to where we are now, which is a week after the book has been released. And I imagine it's been a bit of a surreal time for you, because someone who has been in the shadows and now you're doing a long form podcast. How has it been this week? How are you feeling about your story being out there?
Good, actually. Yeah, I actually thought I wouldn't, but I actually feel good about it. I thought maybe I'd be a little bit uncomfortable having these conversations, but I feel good about it. As I said, right at the beginning, is that I've been very transparent about my intentions to the NZ Defence Force. So at any point in time, they could have said, well, we don't want that and that being talked about. So I'm pretty comfortable with what I've put down on paper, and the feedback I'm getting back now is just kind of reinforced that I've done the right thing. And it's hitting the mark at a deeper level for a lot of different people. And I'm hearing a lot of good stories coming in from people who align with my journey, and particularly some of the things that have happened to me, that the toll that it's taken on me and my family, and how to sort of move through it. So yeah, big tick. Yeah.
Big tick here too, and can't recommend the book highly enough. We've spoken at length about some of these things. There's so many stories in there that will sort of blow your mind, but in a good way. Like it's so good what you've done. I'm so glad that you've shared your story. Thank you from me before I pass to Shay for coming in and sharing with us. I think what you have done and the message you're putting out there is going to be so helpful to so many. So
I appreciate it. It's been good. Really good. Yeah.
Appreciate
it.
I can't
do it again. Do the other half of it.
I wonder, how much stuff did you leave out?
Well, I mean, you can't talk about everything. I mean, we went on a huge amount of missions and different things and bits and pieces, but this is just the main. These are the main ones.
Well, the book is Serviceman J, The Untold Stories of an NZ SAS
Soldier. Yep.
You can get that anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And audiobook.
Yep, audiobook. So, all the major bookstores. If you're overseas, you can't. Australia's not publishing it physically until 2025 for some reason. They must have it lined up with other things. So if you are overseas, just order it through HarperCollins. Otherwise, all the major bookstores in New Zealand have them. And then, audiobook, Amazon, Audible, Kindle. Get after it.
I fell into this trap when I knew you were coming on, and I'm gonna quote from your book, which is, a lot of people seem to have a certain perception about the regiment. They think we're cold-hearted, knuckle-dragging guerrillas who just go out there and wipe people off the face of the earth. The reality couldn't be further from the truth. And after reading the book, after speaking to you, the perception versus reality of what you do and how you've done it and what you do now is so far removed from the popular culture image of what it is that we think the SAS does.
Yep.
And you're doing some amazing things out in the community now with a group of very impressionable young New Zealanders. And I think that's just such an awesome thing to be able to turn some of the horrors of the world into such a positive thing.
Yeah.
I just think that's so awesome. So thank you for coming
Appreciate
in.
it. Yeah. No, awesome. Well said. Thanks.
Cheers, Jamie.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
No worries.